Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
Welcome everyone. If we have not met, I'm Suzanne Ricci. I have the pleasure of being the Chief Success Officer over at Computer Coach. At Computer Coach, we provide IT and business certification training. We help individuals and corporations throughout the Tampa Bay area upskill to get the skills they need to be successful. In particular, if you are unemployed right now, there are some training grants that can allow you to add on some really great skills for free. So if you are interested and if you're unemployed, feel free to reach out to either myself or Cassandra's on the call as well. And today we have a great presentation. I'm really excited to hear all of this great wisdom that we're about to get today. So we have Bobby Hite with Tential is going to help us work through how we could start networking like real pros, right? He has done it for a really long time and has done really great at it. So I can't wait to hear what he has to say. So with that, if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat, or we'll have a Q&A at the end as well, but we'll try to answer some questions as we go. And Bobby, I'm gonna let you take it over.
Awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you, Computer Coach. I appreciate you guys kind of putting this together. This is a message I think everybody kind of needs some help with right now. I guess I'll just start with introducing myself. Name's Bobby Hite. I actually work for a company called Tential IT. We are located here in Tampa Bay. I moved down here about 3.5 years ago with our parent company, Corporate Brokers, and we're purely staff augmentation. And then we actually saw an opportunity to branch off and start a professional services organization. So now we are in the business of helping companies just really leverage the data that they have in order to make quality business decisions through leveraging technologies like machine learning and AI. I come to you guys today just because I grew up in the recruiting space. I grew up with a staffing background, specifically technical staffing background. So I come to you today as a career coach and a professional networker, because if you spend one day in staffing, you'll soon come to realize that you're only as good as your network, right? And so you really need to get out there. You really need to build up your own brand, and you need to cultivate a successful strategy around networking, right? So I'll kind of set the table for you guys just quickly and kind of tell you why I decided to put this together and why I've been giving these presentations to groups all over Florida. If you think about the world right now, you have incredibly high unemployment and you have kind of limited demand, I would say. Mix that in, with COVID and all of the business continuity conversations that have been going on in the background, and talking about just pushing an entire workforce remote, right? So to really quantify that issue, or those issues rather, you have a lot of candidates looking around for jobs, and you have an internal talent department at an organization that is as lean as it can possibly get, right? Not only that, but you have companies that are now attracting a much wider group population to their opportunities, because they are not confined by any geographical limitations, right? The vast majority of their workforce is moving remote. And so what ultimately that ends up being is every single position that is posted right now, you have hundreds, if not thousands, of candidates that are applying to each and every one of those jobs, right? So every single person that applies, that decreases the percentage or likelihood that your resume is actually going to get a view by that recruiter or that internal talent specialist who is already overwhelmed with the amount of volume and just their day-to-day, right? You're seeing new creative titles that are being put out there for HR professionals specifically right now because they're getting more thrown on their plate. They're having to do onboarding. They're having to function as a high-level business partner. They're having to take on staffing, recruiting, everything. And so there's a lot more to their job now, which means that they don't have as much time to filter through the resumes and talk to potentially qualified candidates for positions. So all that being said, the only way to navigate this complex environment right now with all the economic volatility and social volatility going on is to network, okay? This is something, I call myself a professional recruiter. I don't want you guys to think that I know everything when it comes to networking. This is something that I have consciously worked to develop for a number of years, and I failed miserably at it for years. So I think the most fun that we're going to have today is just by having those just real genuine conversations. So I will pause intermittently to address any questions that you guys might have. So please write those down. I am also going to send out the presentation to Suzanne so she can disseminate it. And we're also recording too. So you guys can use this as a reference as you guys continue to deploy this strategy. You know, and me and my team, I have a couple of team members on the call. Brandy Backus, I see you. Heather, I see you. Mike Toll, I know you're here as well. Both with potential and corporate brokers. You know, we're here to support you guys every step of the way, okay? I am going to start sharing my screen. Just give me like a big thumbs up if you guys actually see this populate, because I know at times it likes to take some time to populate. So, all right, awesome. Looks like we're good. Awesome. So Networking 101, I'm gonna kick this off here. I probably mistitled this. I don't think this is necessarily a Networking 101 session. If I could give you guys like the quick and dirty when it comes to Networking 101, I would say Networking 101, you know, and if I was a professor teaching that course, I would say, just get out there and start talking to people, because that's exactly what I did. And that's how I created this strategy, right? I built some really good relationships, but I noticed I wasn't really deriving any value from that process. I wasn't getting quick wins. It wasn't a fun process for me, right? And so ultimately I gave up. It's a very awkward situation to step into if you are just if you aren't just naturally, you know, super extroverted, or have grown up in a generation in which you're leveraging social media and sharing your opinions openly and learning how to navigate those conversations succinctly, right? So I understand that it's a tough environment to step into, but Networking 101, just get out there and start talking to people. This is probably more of an advanced level course. Feel free to take some notes and follow along. I'm going to talk about the mindset that you need to have when you're approaching networking. I'm going to talk about the networking strategy that I've developed myself. This is for you guys to use as a framework. And then I'm going to talk about brand development. And then I'm going to spend a good amount of time on navigating like the actual conversation, right? Once you get in front of somebody, what the heck do I say? So I think the very first thing that we need to address is your mindset as it pertains to networking. Ultimately, we really need to change the way that we think about networking. And this is the hardest thing for us to do. We always have this end goal in mind of, I need to navigate, you know, I need to network in order to get this new sale, right? If you're in sales, I need to network to navigate to get a new job if you're on the job market. Or I need to network in order to get some value for myself. I'm going to ask you guys to switch that mindset. And I understand that it is a complete paradigm shift here, but we need to make it all about gaining new perspectives from people, right? We need to make it all about learning new skills, okay? And navigating our network to identify mentors. Those mentors, they are going to be your absolute champions, okay? Because they're going to be able to act as, you know, a teacher for you. They're going to be able to help you develop along your career. And, you know, you're going to find some mentors really easy. just by connecting with them, and others are going to be, or it's going to take a while to really develop that relationship. But those are going to be, the people who can really, really help you take your career to the next level, right? And they can act as a sounding board for those new ideas. And ultimately, we need to get out of our comfort zone. I addressed this earlier. Networking does not come natural to a lot of people, especially if you're not of the millennial generation where all we do is just share our ideas and personal content online. We really need to essentially think differently here. The whole point of this and thinking differently and changing your mindset is to diversify your network. We don't simply just want to maintain the network that we have and build really good relationships with past colleagues. We really want to attract new people outside of our, sphere of influence into our network so we can gain exposure to those new ideas. And you have to set the precedent in openly sharing your ideas in order for that to happen. On to the next one here, give, right? Any conversation that you're having with somebody as it pertains to networking, you need to navigate that conversation and try to figure out, okay, how do I provide value to this person? Even if you called the meeting in order to learn about them, just as an individual, the onus is on us to figure out how can I potentially provide value to this person, and what does value mean to this individual? Okay, we need to prioritize other people's needs and not our own. And the way we do that is just by maintaining a curious mindset, right? And approaching each interaction with genuine humility when you're connecting with people. And doing that in a fashion of which you're not expecting anything in return. The more that you give, the more value that you provide to your network, the more that you're going to be able to get out of it. And that's just going to happen organically. Call it good karma, if you will. But you have to be willing to provide a lot more than you receive and realize that this is a process. This is not, that instant gratification that we all like when somebody likes an Instagram post or a Facebook post or a LinkedIn, comment or anything like that. And I mentioned genuine humility earlier because we can't be a salesperson throughout this process. Those of you who are in sales, it might be hard to kind of put that aside and prioritize other people's values and not your own. But this is not Wolf of Wall Street here. We are connecting with human beings, and that method is gone when it comes to sales, if you even want to call it that anymore. We can't be a salesperson. We can't be, really direct in saying, hey, I'm interested in this company. Can you introduce me to this manager? Because they have absolutely no reason to do that. We have not provided any level of value to this individual. And always be networking, right? This presentation is not for people who are only on the job market. This presentation is for anybody, people who are gainfully employed, people who, are in sales, people who are in IT, people who, are looking around aggressively for a job or even passively, because we're changing the mindset, right? Like all we're looking to do is stay engaged with the network that we currently have and draw more people into our network and share our experiences and learn from one another. Okay. And by doing that, the stronger network that you have, the more opportunity that you're going to be able to essentially probe out of that network when the time comes. Even as leaders, whether you're a thought leader, a people leader, whatever it is, your ability to surround yourself with competent people is going to directly reflect your ability to essentially create a strong team around you. And as thought leaders, as people leaders, we are only as strong as the people that we surround ourselves with, the people that we communicate with on a daily basis. And the only way that you're going to be constantly exposing yourself to people who are better than you is by getting out there and meeting people. And I have a segment here in leadership positions are almost always filled by referrals and introductions. Eventually throughout your career, you might want to step into a management level role. Any type of people leader position, this is a fact. 75% of those opportunities are filled through introductions and referrals. The better network you have, the more potential that you'll be able to get your resume in front of the right person through an introduction or referral. So that was the bit about mindset. I would like to, I guess, just kind of take a step back here and address any questions that you guys could potentially have.
Bobby, I have a question for you. It's Suzanne.
Yeah.
How do
Go ahead.
you get out of the fear mindset, right? When you're about to walk in the door to a new networking event, you may not know anyone there, you don't know yet, you're about to open that door. And I just feel like so many of us have that heart sinking
Without a doubt.
on like, take a deep breath, you can do it. So what tips do you have for us today on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, and that's something I struggled with for a really long time. That's why I honestly, I did not attend networking groups. Even when I first moved down here to Tampa, it's tough walking into a room with complete strangers and introducing yourself at, a sandwich bar, talking about, whatever vendor supplied the sandwiches and how good they are, right? Like, it's just awkward. And so I really started to, when I changed my mindset and made it about just learning, I'm not looking to persuade anybody to introduce me to a hiring manager after the first conversation. I'm not looking to get anything out of that person other than just having a conversation, learning more about them. And if they're better than me, asking them, how did you intentionally develop XYZ skill sets in order to get where you are today? And you'll be surprised on how much you'll learn, just through osmosis and actually attending those events. A lot of them are virtual nowadays too. So I think it's a little easier for us. I don't know what it is, being behind a computer screen in order to, kind of engage online. It's a little more comfortable, but, at each and every one of those networking events, I always, even still today, still get a little bit of those jitters. But once you're there, it's fine. You have a great time. You're talking to people. If you make it about learning, and you have to realize that every single person there is there for the same reason, right? Like, they're looking to develop my network or their network. And so, they're actively engaged in that group for a specific reason, of which is probably very similar to yours. As much as it might be easy to think that, you're going to get, turned down, or you're not going to connect with people. If you're in a room of people that are looking to connect with people, chances are that you're going to meet some awesome individuals. And not only that, but those are individuals who have a network of their own. They haven't been, behind a computer screen for the past several years, most likely, just kind of heads down doing their job. They've been engaged in the technical community. They've been out there. So I just try to, kind of take a deep breath and take a step back and realize that, all the people that I'm scared of in this room here, they're all after the same thing. And that's just to meet each other and build meaningful relationships. So that was a great question though, because that's definitely a large concern and very natural feeling to have. Cool. So this is essentially the networking workflow that I put together. Again, through trial and error and years of not having a strategy, I took a look back and I assessed, all right, like, what are the actual steps in this process that I've deployed, and why is it working? Essentially, the first thing that I did when I made this shift here was I identified some internal weaknesses that I have, right? I've changed my mind and have made networking all about learning and developing skills. And so I settled on 3 weaknesses of mine, of which I set out to intentionally develop. Okay. And that's harder to do for a lot of people. I'd say if you were to ask me what my strengths are, I could wrap a couple off, pretty quickly. I know what I'm good at. If you ask me what my weaknesses are, it's a little harder to identify exactly what those are. So I'd say, if you're having a hard time identifying those areas of weakness, then I'd say, talk to your friends, talk to your family, talk to your peers who you've worked with in the past, talk to people you've gone through classroom training on. and just have an open and honest conversation and open yourself up a bit. And you should be able to figure out what those weaknesses are. And I intentionally say weaknesses because we have to appear vulnerable, right? We have to, or at least just have like a veil of vulnerability when we're engaging with people, because people habitually like to help, right? And they like to help people who are asking for help or just need the help. And that statement has never been more true than it is right now. With everybody who's been affected by COVID, with every large organization that suddenly shuts its door here, specifically in Tampa Bay, you see the technical community just rally around those people. And there's a viral message going around on LinkedIn that says something to the fact of, were you affected by COVID? How can I help? Can I introduce you to a hiring manager? Can I help you with your resume? Can I do X, Y, Z? Right? Like, and that message is going viral for a reason, because people are looking to provide as much value as they can to others during this time specifically, right? So this is the perfect time to deploy this strategy, and this is very timely. So essentially, I identified what my weaknesses were. I settled on, public speaking and brand development and P&L management, because I happened to be stepping into more of a director level position and managing, a P&L of our group. And I honestly do not come from a finance background, so it was just complete jargon to me. But once I identify what those weaknesses are, I only chose 3, right? For some of us, it's going to be a little harder to identify weaknesses. If you're a very junior professional, then I think it takes some time in order to consciously identify, okay, what are some areas of which I can improve? Because I could use a lot of help in a lot of areas, right? I'd say try to settle on 3, just because if you're all over the map and you say, I need to improve here, you're not actually going to learn anything. You'll be having a lot of conversations, but you're not going to develop yourself. And so try to choose 3, and then you want to identify leaders, right, that are in your market, hopefully. Because we are moving remote, I would say that's not even as important as it was two or 3 months ago. As long as you are identifying leaders who can help you intentionally develop that skill set, that's fine. And a leader can be anybody, right? A leader is somebody who has a skill set of which you need to intentionally develop in, right? They are better than you in this area, right? And so they are a leader in your eyes in this specific area. I'm not talking about CIOs here, or CTOs, or VPs or directors. A leader could be an intern. In fact, I had a lot of conversations with people who are in the social media and brand development space in order to figure out, how do I develop my own brand? How do I get out there and essentially organically just connect with people on LinkedIn? And you're talking to kids who are fresh out of college because they grew up in that world, right? And so I think you'll be surprised if you really take a look and identify some areas of weakness, who could potentially be a leader to you. And then you just want to connect with those people, okay? So reach out and connect. I have a couple templates for you guys, but reach out in hopes to start to form a true relationship by taking a keen interest in just learning about how they got to where they are today, and specifically how they developed that skill set, okay? It gives you guys something to talk about with somebody who has a strong knowledge in that area, and people like to talk about things that they are confident in. And then always, if you're fortunate enough to kind of get that meeting on the books, and this person's willing to take time out of their day to help you out, like I said, the onus is on you to reciprocate in that relationship, and always end the question, how can I help you? Right? We want to find out, how can I provide value to this person in some way? And oftentimes you're going to have to provide value to this person well before they're going to be willing to provide you with an introduction over to this person, right? Some people, it's going to be really easy. Some people, all you have to do is ask and they'll do it. But some people, you're going to have to nurture that relationship and really solidify that relationship for a while, a couple weeks, a couple months, it could be a year. And it's only a couple conversations throughout that year in order to develop that relationship, at which the point that you have a leverage in order to go back and ask them for that potential introduction. And always ask for referrals to other people in their network who can potentially help you in your journey to develop these skill sets, right? So if I chose public speaking, brand development, and merger and acquisition strategy, then my question to every single person that I would be speaking to and in my current network would be, you know, Heather, who would you potentially reach out to for public speaking advice in Tampa Bay, Florida? You know, that's an area that I'm really looking to intentionally develop in. Like, who comes to mind? And then they'll say a name, right? And say, that's awesome. All right, well, who would you reach out to for brand development advice in Tampa Bay? I'm really looking to develop in that area as well. And also merger acquisition strategy. You get the point here. But I would honestly ask all three, right? And you'll be surprised, as long as you make the conversation about learning and they have had an enjoyable experience with you and you haven't completely wasted their time, you haven't, you know, had an hour and a half, 2-hour conversation with them learning about, you know, their career journey, and have come to the meeting prepared to kind of show your credibility and your professionalism and navigated that conversation succinctly, you would be so surprised on how just having a positive experience with that individual, you will be willing to make the introduction to somebody in your network, right? Because you know that they're not going to waste that person's time either, right? And they're actually genuine in their approach. You have to be genuine throughout all of this, or else it will not work, right? And you will not get those consistent wins, and you will give up. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that, I have given up, but I got back on the horse. So pillars of weakness here. I really want to just kind of throw a slide up just because it's really important. I'm not going to take too much time here because I did spend a good amount of time talking about this, but you know, you really, really, really need to take the time to identify where your weaknesses are, right, in order to deploy this strategy. And you can't be afraid to ask people for help and appear vulnerable. This is essentially the foundation of your entire active and proactive strategy. The brand development portion, that's a great way to organically just develop your name and your brand and what you want people to think about you, and how to organically just get people to connect with you because they like the same things that you like. But the pillars of weakness here, that stands up your entire proactive strategy. You need to be constantly reaching out to people to have conversations, and you need to give yourself the platform to attract people as well. Okay, so consciously engage with people to learn from them. We have a strategy now. Where the heck do we start, right? You could start with anybody. Current relationships, friends and family, community leaders, right? Nonprofit leaders, subject matter experts, past colleagues. I have a concept map, but we'll pass on that just for the sake of time. You have to think about, like, who did they potentially know, right? Who does my brother potentially know? Who does my sister potentially know? Who does my priest or pastor potentially know? Who does, you know, this guy on LinkedIn always posts about master data? Like, who does he potentially know? Who do my past colleagues and bosses and mentors potentially know? If you quantify all of those connections, like the possibilities are absolutely limitless, but we have to ask the question. We have to ask for referrals, or else we're not going to be exposed to that. And the 7 levels or the 6 levels of connection, whatever it is, you're never going to be able to drill down into that and expand your network if you don't ask. I wanted to put some prompts for you guys, just because I realize that asking somebody for help is just also a very awkward thing to do. So getting the meeting, I put some prompts here that have worked well for me in the past. Hi, Jim. I really liked your article surrounding leadership development. It is clearly something that you are passionate about. I'm looking to intentionally develop my leadership skills over the next several months. Do you have 20 minutes on Monday for a call so I can pick your brain? Essentially, this accomplishes a lot in a very short sentence here, a couple sentences, right? The reason why I'm reaching out is because I liked your article. I'm looking, like, lay the foundation here. I'm looking to intentionally develop my leadership skills. Do you have a finite window of time that works for a 20-minute conversation, right? And I recently started using this application called Calendly. If you guys are really looking to effectively deploy this strategy, I would look into it, because 40 to 50% of the meetings that you try to get on the books, there is that immediate, yeah, definitely, let's hop on a call. And then you have to navigate like, okay, like when is a good time? We're all incredibly busy. But what Calendly does, and I'm not a Calendly rep or anything like that, I just like the tool up. It essentially links to your calendar, and it allows people to see what your availability is. It doesn't put any details up there or anything like that, but it just lets them click a link, click a time, and it's set, right? So I would follow this up if there is interest, and go ahead and send that link. If not, it still gives them 20 minutes on Monday, what works for a call. Because like I said, like 40 to 50%, it's lost in that interaction. So you need to tell them why you're reaching out, tell them what you want to talk about, and the time frame and when you would like to speak. Okay. There's going to be some times when it doesn't work out, but giving them that finite window of time is incredibly helpful. Again, same idea, like hi Tracy, helpful as well. I was thinking about getting in the healthcare field. I noticed that you have 15 years of experience in healthcare. I'm working to intentionally develop my project management skills. I was curious what challenges your industry presents in those areas. You have 20 minutes on Tuesday or Thursday. You can give them a couple of times as long as it is a finite window, right? And so again, you tell them why you're reaching out. You tell them what the conversation is going to be centered around and the finite window of time. Like, you don't only have to fall back on the weaknesses here. Like, industry is also a really good way to just talk to somebody if they've been in a specific industry for a long time, because each industry presents its own separate challenges, and people like talking about how their work is impacted by the industry that they're in and how their work impacts, essentially their business, right? So these are conversations that people should be willing to have. I'm going to pause now and address any questions, comments, concerns.
Bobby, in the chat, there's a question. Reciprocating is difficult sometimes when speaking to leaders. Can you give tips on generic offerings?
Specifically talking to leadership, that's a really good point. I always fall back on the question, how can I help you? There's a number of ways that you can help anybody. If you can internally, and this is part of this branding concept, if you can communicate the areas of which you are really competent in, those are areas of which you can probably help that person. So whether they need advice pertaining to XYZ, whether they want you to send them a white paper concerning, XYZ, whatever it is, you can almost probe that value out of that conversation in a way by taking that approach and letting them know like what you are a subject matter expert in and where they should probably turn to for advice. You could also fall back on the fact that you have a really strong network. So if they do need an introduction to anybody, or they're looking to learn more about a specific company, you can reach out to your network and try to facilitate an introduction so they can figure out, is that an organization that might align well with me in the future? Or what are they experiencing? What technology challenges are they experiencing right now, right? If I know a director, over at Tech Data, and I also know a director at another services organization, I can even, say like, hey, I know this director over here. I'm sure you guys are experiencing very similar challenges. Would you like me to facilitate an introduction for you so you guys can just talk through some of the challenges that you're experiencing? Because at the end of it, everybody needs help, but not everybody is willing to ask for it, right? And so that's where you have to intentionally just kind of take the onus on yourself and find out ways to communicate what you're strong in. And if you have a network that's strong, leverage that network, right? Everybody that you should be connecting with, I always like asking them, would you be open to me introducing you to people just to like learn about your organization every once in a while? So you can just give them the lay of the land, and you'd be surprised. Everyone's like, yeah, sure, that'd be great. So that's one way that I've been able to kind of derive what value means to people, is just by taking a really direct approach, or sometimes just asking the question, how can I help?
And another question
Does that make sense?
Is, can you give some examples of weaknesses?
It's funny, I was talking to a couple junior developers the other day, and it was the challenge with, if you are a junior professional, is what I kind of stated earlier. I need help in a lot of areas. I need help in, my business acumen. I need help in a specific programming language or Angular 7 as opposed to another version of Angular, or I need help with just learning about machine learning or data architecture as it pertains to the dev side of the house, and just learning how to navigate my way through an organization. There's a lot there, right? I would try to intentionally make your weaknesses areas of which people are going to be excited about talking about. If you make one of your weaknesses self-awareness or confidence or something like that, these internal values, it's gonna be hard if I put myself in the other person's side. If I had somebody reach out to me and ask about how do I increase my self-awareness, I would say, yeah, let's hop on the phone. But I could see where a lot of other people would be like, why is this guy asking me this? Do I appear to be this incredibly self-aware individual? Or, so you need to pick your audience well and pick, if you are a junior professional and you need help in a lot of areas, I would almost say pick areas of which you're looking to intentionally develop. I wouldn't even call them weaknesses. They could be your biggest assets pertaining to technology, but there are still a plethora of people out there who are a lot better than you at that specific skill. And so that's what I would fall back on. All right, awesome. So this is the branding section of this. These two work hand in hand. They work in tandem to one another. If you are pulling a bunch of people to your LinkedIn page, you're reaching out to them and trying to learn, you need to be putting yourself on a pedestal here. You need to have a sharp looking LinkedIn. You need to be actively engaging in your network. And so there's a lot of benefits there in helping attract people just organically as well. Ultimately, in order to do that, you really need to spend some time in identifying what you want your brand to be. When you're thinking about branding, you need to think of it as though you are the product heading to market. And your brand is not your title, right? Your brand is not your company. When I think about somebody's brand, I think about if they were to start their own company, what would they want their LinkedIn to say essentially? If Bobby LLC was to start his own company, what would I want my brand to be? What area of value can I really, really provide value? So identify what your strengths are in order to figure out what that is. And again, if you're having trouble identifying what your strengths are, ask your peers. And I would make these those hard skills too. If you're a junior developer, but you're really outgoing, I wouldn't say making your brand professional networker or something like that is really going to be super, super valuable to you, just because when you have people look at your network or look at your page, you want them to truly see, all right, what can I reach out to this person about? Unless you're a developer that's just really good at networking, then definitely do that. But you want to identify what your true strengths are, okay? Because those three strengths are going to align directly with your brand identity, and that is going to stand up your entire brand development strategy. We're defining our brand by identifying what our strengths are. We're using social media to communicate what that brand is to the world, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, blogs, whatever it is, whatever you're most comfortable with. I will tell you first thing, LinkedIn is the one to use without a doubt. There are 550 million users coming up here in 2025. And that number just seems to increase every single time I check back in. So you have to go where eyes are, and eyes are digital right now. So you don't have to create a career coaching Instagram or a career coach Twitter or, a developer Instagram or a developer Twitter by any means. That's not something I've done, just because, again, this is a process. I will eventually probably do that, but LinkedIn is a great platform to essentially prop up your brand. And it's where eyes are right now. And And propping up your brand, like, you can't be afraid to share what your true opinions are. There's a lot of opportunity if you are strong or a subject matter expert in a particular field or have a particular area of which you can provide incredible insight to, then you cannot be afraid to say what your real opinion is. Because you have to remember, like, we're not trying to appeal to those every 550 million users on LinkedIn. We're trying to appeal with the people who are like, wow, that was a sick comment, Bobby. Or like, wow, yeah, I really identify with that. Because those are going to be people who want to be in our network and want to stay actively engaged. And then, you know, there's online publications and creative content. I definitely recommend putting creative content out there, not just simply sharing a bunch of articles from people. If you have a brand, you should be able to speak to it, right? And so whether it's just throwing up like short paragraphs on a particular experience that you had or a specific challenge that you learned from, share that experience, because there's likely you know, somebody else out there who has shared that same thing, and they want to learn from that. Online publications are a great way. Speaking at events is a fantastic way to prop up your brand. You can do it digitally as well. It's exactly what I'm doing right now. Right now, you guys didn't know, you know, Bobby Hite from Joe Schmo down the street, but now, you know, if you guys need to turn to somebody for networking advice, you're probably going to think of me in some way, shape, or form. If you absolutely hated everything that I have to say during this presentation, you're not going to reach out to me, and that's fine. There's 550 million other users out there. So as long as I'm reflecting my brand in an authentic, you know, accurate way, I'm going to be attracting the right people. And that's the biggest thing. Threw another slide on here for the pillars of strength, because, like, again, like, this stands up your entire branding strategy. If you don't take the time to figure out what you want your brand to be and what your true strengths are, you're not going to be successful. You're going to be posting about evolutionary architecture one day, and then Python programming the next day, and data architecture, machine learning, and AI the next day. And people are going to be so confused, like, what does this guy do? This guy's crazy. So you need to identify what your true strengths are, okay? And essentially what your strengths are, you have to think about, like, what are you passionate about talking about? You know, when you're talking to your colleagues at work, like, who comes to you for advice for anything? You know, when you were going through a training course, does anybody ask you questions because you're slightly better than them in a specific area? So really, really think about that. These are areas that you are really passionate in. I would try to find like one or two strengths that you would consider yourself, and it can just be one. You can consider yourself a true subject matter expert in. You know, if you can't think of more than that, then just fall back on what you're passionate about. If you're passionate about machine learning, but you've only taken a couple LinkedIn certification courses, that's fine. You still know a lot more about a lot of other people out there, right? So I would feel comfortable with you saying just machine learning as a part of your brand, because it's something that you will continue to research in. You're passionate about it, and you like having conversations about machine learning. So again, like, this is the foundation of your entire brand identity. I can't, you know, speak enough that you really need to spend some time to figure out what you want your brand to be, because all of the content that you generate should align with your brand identity in some way, shape, or form. You need to, you know, keep projecting a consistent message. There's a lot of real-time ways to engage and kind of get your brand out there. Sharing relevant articles on social media, that's a really good way. I would not just share the article, but you need to, again, like, share your opinion of that article. Like, one, let's prove that you actually read the thing. Two, like, let's say something that you found insightful about that article as well, because that is how you're going to get people to connect with you, is they identify with that message. Or maybe they completely disagree with that message and they say that on a comment section. That is a fantastic way to reach out to somebody and just gain their fresh perspective on that matter. And that's also a really good way to come back with a rebuttal or just address their concern with what your opinion was. Because again, we're not trying to appeal to everybody. Maybe that person's just not meant to be in my network, if they say, Bobby, I hate your networking strategy. Okay, that's awesome. Like, tell me why. Tell me why you don't like this. This is why I think it's important. By reinforcing that message, that's another opportunity for that message to resonate with somebody else out there. And the fact that they've commented on your post, it opens up your post to a lot more views, right? Because all of their connections are going to see that too. So I see even negative comments as a real opportunity, right? Just to engage in a dialogue. I would definitely write what your true thoughts are before sharing that message. Sharing and receiving feedback in current challenges in your day-to-day is another really great way. Obviously, if you're working for an organization, you have to be careful about exactly what you're saying in that message. You don't want to give up too much information, or else you'll find yourself in the HR room. But like, if you're discussing coding principles or architectures or strategies, feel free to share those experiences on LinkedIn, because everybody has experienced the same challenges. Your company is not on an island by themselves. If you're within an organization, 99% of the time, there's 550 million users on LinkedIn. Somebody else has experienced that same challenge, right? And so hearing you talk through that, or just share the fact that you are going through that, is a great way just to, again, just attract people to your page and attract people to that post. Identifying and sharing local events within your network, that's a fantastic way to develop your network and get your brand out there. Because if you think about it, like, the hosts of these meetup groups, they're really good people to connect with. So if I'm always sharing the posts or sharing the events that this person is having, if that person were to reach out to me and just ask for a quick networking conversation on how to develop a brand or how to engage more effectively, right, an area of which that host is really good in, they're going to be a lot more inclined, because you have been sharing their events with your network all along. And those people are very well plugged in. This is exactly something that I've done in the past. I'm not sure if it's how Suzanne and I connected. It might have been. I'm not sure. But again, like this, if people like that gratification, and they like somebody who's looking out for them. So if you're sharing their events, and you ping them in that message and say, this is like a great group, then they're going to like that, and they're going to be a lot more inclined to hop on the phone with you. Bringing together informal groups of peers and industry contacts, I have had so much success with this. So if I see somebody post an article about their opinions around evolutionary architecture, right? And this could be, a senior director, and I see a couple people commenting their ideas through that, I will reach out to every single one of those people and say, hey, I'm organizing a thought group or a thought sharing session on Friday at 5 o'clock. If any of you guys are interested in hopping on to share your perspectives and your life experiences pertaining to this subject, we'll be on. And it has been an absolute game changer with me in connecting people really informally to talk about an area of which they're passionate about. A lot of people are looking to contribute to these conversations, and specifically the areas like that they comment on LinkedIn. That's an area that they want to talk about, right? They want to have a conversation about that subject. And so if you offer them that platform in order to share their ideas, they'll be grateful of it. And then creating presentations is also another good way. Exactly what I'm doing right now. This is a really good way to get your platform out there and share your knowledge with the world. So this is going to be talking about LinkedIn. We went through a lot there. I'm not sure if it's something that everybody necessarily agrees with, but I'd like to hear everybody's comments, questions, or concerns.
Bobby, there's another question. Well, there's two, and they kind of go hand in hand. So one of them says, my brand is changing. I've been networking to better understand how I can.
So I read that one, and I am prepared to address that.
And another one.
Thanks for calling that out.
There's another one that follows the same topic, which is, I'm a junior professional. How do I provide value? So I think they touch on the same.
Yeah, they do kind of go hand in hand. So I'd say your brand doesn't necessarily have to be, I'm a subject matter expert in this field. Your brand could be, I am this level in this field. These are areas of which I am passionate about, right? there's also people who are going to find value in that as well. You know, whether it's a director who's looking to hire, if you are putting your brand out there and you are somebody who is passionate about areas of which they are looking for that, that's going to be a very, very effective, you know, kind of recruiting tool as well. Specifically to Robbie, I saw you say that you're kind of changing your brand a bit and you don't necessarily feel comfortable putting a lot of your thoughts and opinions out there because you feel as though people might think that you're trying to reflect that you are a subject matter expert. We need to be really authentic. If we're not a subject matter expert in the field, we can still make our brand around these particular areas that we're passionate about. Like, your brand should be areas that you're passionate about or really, really strong in. I would try to make it at least one area that you are a subject matter expert in, but then there's two other strengths there that you can effectively, you know, put in as your brand and your headline in LinkedIn, which we're about to get to right now, that can really help to kind of build that out for you. So I'd say, like, just be incredibly authentic in your approach. Like, don't say you're a subject matter expert in your brand if you are not a subject matter expert. You know, you can simply be somebody who is passionate about this area, and through engaging in reading new articles and gaining new perspectives and new ideas, you will become a subject matter expert, or at least people will start to see you as a subject matter expert. And that might seem that you are, you're kind of guiding them in, you know, the wrong fashion. But, you know, I would say, again, as long as you are stronger in somebody in a specific area, like, who's to say you're not a subject matter expert in that field in the eyes of that person, right? Like, you're still considered a leader in that field just because you are stronger and you can provide insight to that area. So I hope that answered your question, you know, kind of in a roundabout way there. For the sake of time, I'm going to kind of power through, you know, a good bit of this kind of next section here, because I really want to focus on the end portion. Like, your LinkedIn profile. I think a lot of us get a lot of coaching around this. If you ask one individual, they'll tell you one thing. If you ask another, they'll have a different opinion about it. So just, like, take mine with a grain of salt. Like, this is not like 100% the right thing to do as it pertains to LinkedIn, but I'm hoping to give you just like some nuggets that you can pull from this. Have a nice professional photo. I really want to focus on the headline portion of this. When you're thinking about your headline, what is the first thing you want people to read? You know, I think it's so true. Like, we hear our entire lives, you have 7 seconds to make a great first impression. I think that's probably not so true in person. I think you have a little bit more time to, like, convince this person that you're a decent human being. But online, you probably have like 4 seconds, 5 seconds, maybe 7 seconds on a good day if that person just had a cup of coffee. Like, you really need, like, what do I want this person to think about me, right? What do I want to convey in that first 7 seconds? I think your headline should be directly related with your brand, right? So essentially, you guys can probably tell, like, I settled on my strengths: career coaching, networking, and sales. I think I've changed it to account management now, because I noticed that, like, if you put sales in your headline, that's obviously not a good idea, because people are like, oh, this grimy salesperson is trying to get something out of me. And so I changed that. So I made this a little while ago. But again, like, this has been a complete learning process for me too. So I'm happy to share that bit of knowledge. So again, like, you want to make your headline, and if you don't want to use, you know, like, connecting with data professionals and developers daily, or career coach, or like any of these like really catchy terms, you can just put what your 3 strengths are. You know, put project management, like agile, and, you know, something else that'll help you kind of set yourself apart from the pack. I honestly, I like having 3 strengths here to develop your brand around, because I really like people who make one of their strengths just like something that they enjoy in their personal life too. I think it really helps you connect with people just in a more intimate way. And if the first thing, like if I'm really a passionate cyclist and I see that this person has avid cycler or like biking person, you know, like I'm gonna say, yeah, like awesome, click. I'm gonna see what this guy's all about or this girl's all about. And so I would say, like, you know, really take some time to identify what you want their strengths to be. And it could be like something personal too. If you are a coffee connoisseur, you know, you're allowed to post articles tying coffee to business and trying to make it relatable in the world that you're in professionally. It's an area that you like you're passionate about coffee. So like if you're in supply chain, you could post articles about how business continuity conversations around supply chain, you know, in the pandemic and the new era that we're in, and how it's how it affected Starbucks. You know, like that would be a really interesting article for you to reflect on because it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you can tie your professional advice to. You don't necessarily have to make all three strengths like professional strengths of yours. If you want to settle on one that you're a real true subject matter expert in, one that you are really passionate about, and one that, you know, is like a real personal, you know, kind of pillar for you, you're allowed to do that. There's no rules on LinkedIn. You know, I'd say it was strictly a recruiting tool, you know, 7 years ago. Now it's definitely more of a networking and thought sharing platform, right? Awesome. So like education, if you have a degree, put it there, open new opportunities. If you are, check the box. If not, like you still might want to check the box, to be honest with you. Like it'll just put more messages in your inbox. But with that being said, like it'll just flood your inbox with a bunch of solicitations, like from salespeople, from recruiters. Like I would try to navigate that and just make that decision based on how much time you're spending on LinkedIn and how much time you want to spend like getting back to those recruiters as well. Because coming from the recruiter chair, you know, just like from the candidate's point of view, like it's really frustrating when recruiters don't get back to you. And I know that is a practice that should be absolutely criminalized right now in this world, ghosting, if you will. But, you know, just from, you know, same thing from a recruiter's chair, you know, it's frustrating if you spend some time to send somebody, you know, a customized message, if, you know, they don't even, you know, send back with at least a declined message, right? Employment history and titles. I do want to spend a little bit of time here, and there's a slide here that I can address that. So this is the About Me section. I don't want to give you guys a bunch of guidance here. Like this is your opportunity to just get creative and tell people about yourself. You can have it long, you can have it shorter. The important thing is here is like get creative, keep it relatively short. It's definitely not an autobiography, but focus on your strengths, your passions, and your accomplishments, and you'll be just fine. When you're talking about employment history and titles, you know, again, like if you talk to a bunch of people who've been in recruiting, they're going to give you different advice here. Me personally, I think about how do I generate a view from a recruiter, but if I'm, you know, kind of building out my experience here, I would literally copy and paste what you have on your resume. If it was important enough to throw on your resume, it should be important enough to throw on your LinkedIn here. So I would put it in here. It's not going to take up a bunch of space on your profile because they have to click see more to kind of expand that portion anyways. But it will still generate through the Boolean searches and the keyword searches that we use as recruiters to find people. You know, the more content that you have there, the more likelihood that you'll have a view generated to your profile. Okay. I have not done this just because I'm not really open to the market. And I think that my titles do a good job of saying the world, you know, the role that I'm in within our organization right now. And so like, I haven't built it out. So I'd say like, if you're open to new opportunities, definitely build this out just as though you have your resume, to be honest with you. You know, if you're not, it's not as important. It's still a good practice to have, but it's not something that you absolutely need to do. If your titles accurately reflect the job that you're doing, right? There's weird titles now. I was talking to a chief data officer the other day, and his title within his organization, especially as organizations want to appear more agile and have a just more flat organizational structure and hierarchy, they're calling him data lead. And data lead to me, if I were to read that, I would probably, like in my recruiting days, just like scan right by, just like habitually, just because I only have so much time throughout the day, right? And so like it's really, really important. You know, you can have data lead, but maybe in parentheses, like put like CDO, like what your true professionally accepted level within that organization is. Like I think it's really, really important to accurately reflect that as people, you know, just generally can set. So LinkedIn recommendations, this is a fantastic way to just kind of stick out from the crowd. If you are open to opportunities, specifically for leadership positions, I look at every single one of these. For junior positions, I also look at every single one of these. Like I want to see how plugged in is this person? Like, is he going to be a really good cultural fit too? Like I want to see recommendations of peers and even past managers, or if you haven't had a past manager, then a past coach of yours or mentor of yours, to just, again, say, you know, this person really wants to learn. And so I think it's important this is something that LinkedIn used to solicit for you. Now it's something that you actually have to request. So I just kind of put the steps there to go ahead and do that. It's just under additional information under your ad profile section. And this is what they'll see. So like, make sure you reach out to this person and let them know, like, hey, I'm sending a recommendation over your way. It would be awesome if you do this. Try to give them some guidance there, because like, hey, Matt, could you write me a recommendation? Isn't exactly the smoothest way to ask for a recommendation. Awesome. Power through that. This is a very important topic. I know we're running short on time here because fifth grade math starts, or kindergarten math starts soon. 20-minute networking. So this is a book I highly suggest every single one of you read. Marsha Ballinger is an executive in the staffing industry. She has made her life in networking with C-suite level individuals. This is what like the recruiting profession really used to be. And obviously what we really try to coach our internal recruiters and associates to do is make it more of like a networking consultative conversation. But like this is absolutely powerful stuff that she has learned through years and years and years of having hour-and-a-half long conversations and not being able to derive any value out of it. Okay, so she broke this down into a couple steps here. So great first impression, great overview, great discussion, great ending, great follow-up. That's a lot of greats for like 20 minutes, but stick with me, you know, and you'll see. The average person has an attention span of like 20 minutes around there, and then you just really start losing them. I say this as we're like an hour and 20 minutes into this presentation, but hopefully you guys are still with me. Great first impression. So 2 to 3 minutes long. This is essentially just meeting them for the first time, whether it be over video, whether it be in person, like express gratitude for them taking the time to meet you. And then you want to just a little bit of small talk, you know, whether you're talking about the art on the way in or the traffic. People love talking about traffic here, or highlight any connections that you might have with that individual just to create some type of sense of commonality, right? It'll help lower their guard, whether it's mutual connections with them, or whether it's a company that you guys used to work at, or whether it's a college that you attended or a rival college that you attended. It's completely fine to bring that up in just casual conversation to create that sense of commonality there and lower their guard. And then you want to set the agenda. This is really, really important. So like get directly into it after you've built small talk for like a minute. Tell them that you only plan to take 20 minutes of their time, and tell them specifically why you or what you would like to talk about during that time. Obviously, you want to introduce yourself. Okay, so this is your elevator pitch, as a lot of people like to say, an overview of your experience. If you're having trouble keeping this to 60 seconds, it's so important that you manage the conversation in a good flow. So like just keep it to 60 seconds. These people, nobody needs to know what you've done throughout your entire career, and you have an entire conversation to pontificate upon those specific experiences and say, you know, reflect, you know, your strengths and your passions, right? So like just a really high level overview. If you're having trouble doing that, like print out a copy of your resume and highlight like 5-6 things that you're really proud of and just string it together. I don't want to spend too much time there. This is mine that I created like right when I moved down here, got out of Salisbury University. I worked at a gym. I became a general manager. I stepped into a more corporate environment, worked for paychecks. And then I went into the recruiting world with a couple buddies of mine, moved down to Florida, started Potential IT. And now I'm building relationships. So like, if you were to time that out, if I were to read it, it'd be like 55 seconds. So again, like it's so important to keep it to that 1 minute, because then the other person is going to feel inclined to introduce themselves, right? And if you spend 25 minutes talking about or 5-10 minutes, like talking about your experiences, then they're going to feel inclined to reflect for the same timeline, like what they've been able to accomplish, right? Then your 20 minutes is gone. And so is their attention span, unfortunately. So you want to be sure, like, take 60 seconds, because then they'll probably take about 60 seconds or maybe even less. So you want to be sure to kind of command the conversation that way. Great discussion. So this is really like the meat of the conversation here. This is 12 to 15 minutes. You want to do a ton of research on this individual and the company that they're at and the role that they're in before you even sit down with them. Okay. You know what you're stepping into, and they know what, now that you've told them, you know, exactly what you want to talk about during that meeting. Like, you just want to jump right into it. Have 3 questions prepared. It's 5 questions overall, but 3 questions prepared, specifically what you would like to ask that person during this 12 to 15 minute window. I realize that's not a lot of time, and based on how the conversation goes, you might only get to question number 1, but that's fine. Like, this is your first meeting. You have your entire life to connect with this person and ask them question number 2 and question number 3 if you don't get around to it. The important thing is here that you are managing the meeting effectively and you're providing them with a really positive experience. Okay. Question number 4, how can I help you? Now that they have provided you with, you know, a bunch of insight into the questions that you've asked, they've taken time out of their day to connect with you. Again, like, reciprocate. How can I help you? Question number 5, who else do you know in your network? This is asking for referrals. Okay. Ask everybody. Ask everybody on the first conversation. You never know. And like, that's where the real value is here. You know, if somebody takes their time out of your day, that's awesome. But like, think of who they know. And if they're willing to provide introductions, like, all you have to do is ask. A lot of times they're going to say, nah, you know, I'll reach out to a couple friends of mine. That's fine. In the follow-up stage, you'll eventually be able to provide enough value in order to actually get that introduction. So this is asking for the referral. You know, again, like, thank you so much for taking your time to chat with me. Really appreciate it. Found it really insightful as I'm looking to gain fresh perspectives around project management. You mentioned that you worked at WellCare for a while. Do you have any past colleagues that you can put me in touch with over there so I can connect with them for a very similar conversation? The fact that it's a very similar conversation, if they've had a really good experience with you, then they're going to feel inclined to do that, right? And if you're specifically looking to connect with somebody at WellCare, you're just trying to find a way in. Like, you're just trying to find somebody who can, 1, help you learn, help you grow, but give you the lay of the land over there. So that's like a really direct way in asking for a referral that I've found, you know, works a higher percentage of the time than if you were to just say, who do you know? You want to give them some kind of guidance, right? Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me. I found this really helpful as I'm looking to build my leadership skills. I see that you've been in finance for a while. Would you be willing to put me in touch with someone in the finance industry so we can connect for a similar conversation? Again, similar conversation. They've had a really good experience with you. Sure, why not? I know my buddy's in finance. I'll introduce you to him. Again, like, you can also position it like, now they're thinking, who do I know in finance and project management or leadership, right? Great ending. This is 2 minutes. Just like, wrap everything up. You've been taking really good notes during this conversation because you're looking to learn, and it's important that you document this stuff, right? So take really good notes during your conversation. Again, express gratitude, review your notes and any action items that you have. Like, write down, like, if you say, how can I help you? And they say, yeah, like, that was a really interesting thing that you said about this. Can you send me that article? Yes. Like, write that down, action items, send them that article. If they say they're going to introduce you to somebody over at WellCare, write that down, right? Express more gratitude. Again, like, thank you so much for your willingness to introduce me over to Joe Schmo or WellCare. Really, really appreciate it as I'm looking to intentionally develop these skill sets. like I'd mentioned. Great follow-up. Like this is where you really solidify the relationship. So you want to, it's so important. Like take prompt action and follow up directly after that meeting. Okay. Send a thank you card if you can. I understand that like in the digital age, like not everybody's in the office, so you can't send it to their work, and you're not exactly asking everybody that you connect with for their addresses. That might be a little much. So I would definitely not do that. But you want to take prompts. You have their email, right? Follow up in an email and literally document in a thank you note, in a follow-up email, say what you found insightful of the conversation, what your specific action items are and what their action items are. Send that and save it in a folder for you to reference, right? Thank you notes. Send it in a folder. Like it's really important to have some system of documentation as you're continuing your networking, because if not, everything's going to fall through the cracks, right? You're going to forget, oh shoot, I told them that I would send them this article. I never got around to it because I got a call for work, blah, 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 right? Things happen. The important thing is that you're actually following through. I would try to do it as timely as possible, but that's just a really good system that I've found that helps me stay on top of the networking sessions that I do have, where I'm just kind of on the fly, right? Send the email, save it to a folder really quick. And again, like continuous follow-up. So send the email and then like reach out to them, you know, in a week or two and say, hey, I completely forgot to ask you question 2 that I had. Do you have 20 minutes on Monday to have a quick call? That's completely fine. If they've had a really great experience with you, they'll do that. If you see they got a promotion, change companies, change contact information, your network introduces somebody that's also mutually connected with them, right? Like that builds commonality, right? I would say, hey, I met with Joe Schmo the other day. It was a great conversation. How the heck are you? If you want to discuss something, you know, that just came up in conversation, you need to be following up with people. That is how you solidify the relationship. If you have a really, really positive meeting with somebody and you do not talk to them for a year or a couple months even, that like there's this term in sales, it's called LODI, law of diminishing intent, right? So every minute that goes by, the person's intent to actually follow through on something or buy that product or make that introduction just diminishes. Okay, so you need to stay top of mind, and that's where this networking strategy, brand development strategy, and follow-up strategy really work in tandem and harmoniously together. Practice makes perfect. Again, I'll keep this short. Like, just get out there, start talking to people. Try to keep this networking like conversation flow in mind the first couple times. It's probably going to go off the rails. That's fine. Like, just assess after the meeting and see how it went, right? See how you can potentially refine that down to 20 minutes. These are a bunch of networking resources for you guys. Again, I'll send this out to you. I know that we are like at time right now. I really, really, really appreciate everybody taking the time to kind of go through this information for me. You know, again, me and my team are here to act as resources here and help you guys along in your career growth and any networking that you guys are looking to do. So if you have questions, please reach out to me. You can shoot me an email or find me on LinkedIn, Bobby Hite at Potential. If you'd like to connect, I definitely recommend doing so. I do post a good amount of content and articles and things like that too.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.